Hello and welcome to the Confident at Work podcast. I'm your host and confidence coach, Anna Manning. And today, two things. We're talking about rejection. Dun, dun, dun. God, we talk about some exciting things on this podcast, don't we? Last week, we talked about. What did we talk about last week? Well, that was right on the tip of my tongue. Oh, yeah. We talked about making a mistake at work. And this week, we're talking about rejection. So this month, obviously, the podcast is just a barrel of laughs. And I have a cold. So if my voice is crackly, I apologize. I actually just want to be in bed. But here I am recording the podcast for you guys. So, you lucky thing, you. This is going to be a short episode. And the reason that I'm talking about rejection this week is because I got invited to join this special day that a group of 30 students were having, and it was set up by one of the law societies, and it was supported by some law firms. And this is 30 students who are not from kind of their parents are not from professional backgrounds, but they aspire to be lawyers. They want to be lawyers. And so they're helping them with all kinds of things. And as part of this special day that they were having, I was invited to come and talk to them about rejection. And initially, when they asked me to come and talk to them, they said, the theme is going to be like embracing rejection. And I was like, okay, cool. And they were like, do a 10-minute TED style talk about embracing rejection. Anyway, so I went away and I thought about that. And I was like, embracing rejection. Now, is that something that a load of people who were already successful should be talking to 30 students that haven't yet embarked on their career about? How to embrace rejection. And I was a bit like, oh, it feels a bit off to me to talk about embracing rejection. But it is important to actually talk about rejection because unless you're some sort of, super weirdo, probably. There's going to be a rejection at some point in your life. There probably already has been, or there probably will be, whether that's in terms of, it could be a rejection in your professional life from a project or from a group. It could be rejection from a promotion or an organization. It could be rejection from, an element in your community or in a relationship, right? But I'm guessing that most of us, just like in last week's podcast episode, I said, most of us are probably not going to get through life without making a mistake. Same with rejection. Most of us are probably not going to get through life without being rejected at some point. And so I thought about this, how am I going to do this 10-minute TED style talk about embracing rejection? I thought, actually, do you know what? Who can seriously embrace rejection that gracefully? Who can embrace rejection? Like, imagine rejection was a person. You just go and hug them and be like, I can fully embrace you without any negative emotion. Nobody, or probably not really anybody. You know how when you watch an awards ceremony and the person who uh, isn't successful, so they like say, and the winner is, and then they film one of the people who isn't successful. And probably because they're actors or actresses or whatever, they have this amazing smile which like doesn't crack, and they're like so happy for the other person and they're clapping. And I always think, God, I think I would be a lot less graceful than that. If I really wanted to win, I'd be like, God damn it, I'd be annoyed. And maybe they're more graceful than me, or maybe, you know what? Maybe they really are that good at embracing rejection, but maybe also they're just really good at hiding it, right? And smiling and kind of faking it. Cause you don't probably want people to know how you feel right in front of a camera, right? When everyone's going to be broadcasting it and watching it on TV. So for anyone who's thinking about rejection, I had some ideas to share with these students, and I've got some ideas to share with you. So huddle up because I've got 4 alternative ideas, which I think if we could embrace, and I'm counting myself in this, if we could embrace these 4 ideas, maybe it might help us along the way to one day, maybe being able to embrace or at least handle rejection. So, the first one of my ideas, the first thing that I think in order to stand a chance of embracing rejection or dealing with rejection, the first thing that I think we should actually be embracing is ourselves. So I'm going to suggest that you try or think about embracing you. And unless there's any aliens listening to this podcast or anybody who identifies as an alien, you're human. And that means that the fear and pain of rejection feel bad to you, a human. So if you fear rejection and or if rejection hurts, then congratulations, you're officially a human. But I wonder what happens if instead of embracing rejection, you embrace the fact that you're human when a rejection happens. And if you really embraced the fact that you're a human, if you really embraced you, maybe you could embrace the way that rejection feels. What if you could embrace the fact that it hurts and it stings and it sucks and it's sad and it's disappointing and sometimes you're embarrassed? What if you could embrace the you that feels all of those things when you are rejected? What if you could embrace you when you fear rejection or when rejection happens? And maybe that would mean being honest, at least to yourself, and saying, oh, that rejection hurts. And maybe that rejection hurts because I'm a human. And maybe that's okay that rejection hurts. Maybe that's just how I am. And maybe that's okay. So instead of adding on top of the pain of rejection, you thinking, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. I should be able to smile like one of those people at an awards ceremony, or I should be able to take the tips that people give me on the internet about rejection being redirection and feel great about that. I'm not suggesting that you really try and do any of that. I'm just suggesting you embrace the fact that you're a human. And that because of that, there's going to be some pain or fear or disappointment or sadness or whatever it is for you that comes up with rejection. And maybe you could embrace the fact that that's true for you. Maybe be all right with it. And I wonder what would happen next if you did. So let's say you've had a rejection and you can say, yeah, I feel like this absolutely sucks. And I'm going to embrace myself in this moment where it absolutely sucks. Then what? Because I think that could actually be the start of something interesting. The second idea I have around embracing rejection is forget embracing rejection and see if instead you can embrace this idea of you having inherent worthiness. So this is just something that, and maybe because I was brought up religious, or maybe not, I don't know. But this is just an idea that I think that I was brought up with. And I don't know whether I invented this in my own head or whether somebody directly told this to me or what. I don't know. Societal influence, maybe. But I I've been brought up with this idea in my head that people are inherently worthy. And that is to say that it doesn't matter what they do or what they don't do, every human has like an inherent worthiness, an inherent worth. So even if someone has like committed mass murder and they're in prison, that person should still be treated properly and adequately provided for and cared for. And even if you are the, I don't know, King of England, that doesn't make you any more worthy than anyone else. You're just a human like everyone. And so your inherent worthiness is intact. And I think that believing this, and it's just an idea, right? It's just an idea that I've grown up with. But I think believing it has been very helpful to me because even though I try for things, I strive for things and all of that, I know in my heart that there's actually nothing that I can do to make myself any more or less worthy. I can do good stuff and I can do bad stuff, right? And that does reflect on me, but it doesn't change how worthy I am. That worthiness is assured, regardless of what I do. Therefore, I actually don't need to do anything to earn worthiness because I just have it as a human inherently. And when we get rejected or when we fear rejection, it can sometimes tap into this part of us that feels like we need to get that accolade or we need to get that promotion or we need to get that thing or that next step in order to be, worthy, in order to be good. But what if we just thought that we were inherently worthy, whatever happened? Whether we got the promotion or whether we got rejected, whether we were successful at interview or whether we got rejected. What if we knew, like deep in our bones, that our worthiness was completely intact, whether we got rejected every single day of our lives? And I don't mean to say that that wouldn't test somebody and it wouldn't be difficult. I think it would. But what I'm asking is for you to kind of go deeper here and really consider whether you think that your worthiness is changed in some way by rejection. Because our brains could go to that place pretty easily, I think. And maybe if we can cultivate this internal sense of worthiness, maybe just by believing that we're inherently worthy no matter what happens and no matter how many rejections we have, we at least have that safe place to fall back to be back to. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is easy or that it's a fix all, but it's something worth thinking about. If we've got rejections and we've got knocks and we've got hard things coming, maybe we have to cultivate this slightly deeper level of ourselves. And some people would call that like a spiritual idea, right? About our inherent worthiness. So, and maybe, maybe that is what it is, whatever that means to you. So that's my second idea. The first is that you would embrace yourself. The second is that you would embrace your inherent worthiness. And the third is that you embrace your reality. And I know that we all have a reality of things that go on around us all the time. And sometimes that reality really matches what we want. And sometimes it does not match what we want at all. So maybe you think you should have got that promotion, or maybe I think I should have won that piece of work or whatever. We make plans, we have ambitions, there's things we want to do, maybe we have goals and maybe we go after them. And that's great when all of that stuff works out. But what's the reality that it's always going to work out? It's not. But what if, and I'm not saying again that this is an easy thing to do, and I am talking to myself here as much as anybody else, but what if we could have a better relationship with reality? So when stuff doesn't work out the way we want, maybe we get rejected, we're left with the reality of what's actually happening. And that can suck. But what can make it harder is then arguing with that reality. I should have done this. I should have done that. They should have done this. They should have done that. And you may think some of that stuff. But what does it actually do other than frustrate you and add a layer of difficulty on top of a rejection, which probably already hurts? What if you could accept the reality as it now is? What if you could embrace the reality as it now is? And be like, well, this is the reality. I didn't get that thing. I didn't meet that goal. That's the reality. And if I stop my internal battle with whether or not that should have been the case, and I've really managed to drop that battle, then what? How would it feel to really accept what the reality is now? I think it would make me feel less crazy about the rejection. Because being rejected is bad, but then the stuff that goes on in your head afterwards is probably worse. This shouldn't have happened. That shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have been that, right? And I know that's not just me. But what if I could accept reality? Well, he chose to leave me. That's the reality. Well, I didn't get that piece of work. That's the reality. So what now? How would it feel to drop that battle that can rage inside us after a rejection and accept the reality as it is? So that first idea was to embrace yourself. The second idea was to embrace your inherent worthiness. The third idea was to embrace reality. And the fourth and last idea is to embrace the truth. And this is the truth as it appears to me. You may completely disagree with me, but I'm going to go out on a limb and share what I think is true. I'm going to risk your rejection and tell you what I think is true, which is that when it comes to our professional lives, yes, we want to do well. Yes, we work hard. You're listening to this podcast, so I can tell you care about your career. Otherwise, there's no way you'd be spending time listening to this podcast. So you probably work hard. You probably you play your part. And to me, the truth appears to be that all of that matters and none of it really matters. And again, maybe this is like the philosophical or the spiritual or a deeper idea about what's really true. That yes, all of it matters when we have to pay our bills and pay our mortgage and we want to get ahead and we have things we want to do, all of that. Yes, all of that matters to us, but none of it really matters. That's the truth. None of it really matters. None of it is really who you are. Whether things go well or whether you get rejected. None of that is really who you are. You're way more than that. And sometimes it's the awful things in life which kind of bring us into this reality, to this truth as I see it. And I accept it's just as I see it. But as I see it, that none of this really matters. And often they're the big, hard things. We have a death, we have a loss, we have a grief. Something shakes our world in such a way that it really shows us what's important and what is true and what is just noise and striving and all of that. An essential, probably part of our human lives. But those big things can really put stuff into perspective. So if you're attempting to embrace rejection, then maybe it's time to look a little bit deeper and see if you can embrace the truth about whether this thing is really a thing that matters. professional lives may be important. And at the same time, I don't think any of it really matters. And you might think, well, that's a bit mental because you're sitting here saying that as somebody who's got a cold and wants to be in bed, but actually you're making a podcast to help people with their careers. I get the irony. But I still think it's true that whilst I think that your career and the way you feel at work is of the utmost importance, and that's the reason that I do this, to help you, I don't really think that any of it matters. Not in the truest sense. So, I will end my sermon there. Here endeth the first lesson, as they say. I hope that was useful to you. Maybe this episode was a little bit different than some of my other episodes, or maybe you'll think that it wasn't. And as always, I would love to hear from you. If you have thoughts or ideas, or you're like, I completely reject your assertion, Anna, I am willing for you to reject my assertions about things that you could embrace instead of rejection. So, that is what I have for you this week. And I have exciting news, or what I think is exciting news. You may have heard, if you listened to the last couple of weeks' podcast, that I am launching a new thing called the Members Club. And the Members Club is a place for strengthening, supporting, and sustaining women at work. There are group coaching calls, a private podcast, training modules, general support for you and your work brain on an ongoing basis. And everything is nearly ready. And we're going to be launching on, I should have checked this before I did the podcast. I think we're going to be having our first call on the 13th of May. So that is in a couple of weeks. So that's exciting. And by the time you listen to this podcast episode, there will be a link in the show notes so that you can go and check out the page that's got all the information on it. And you can click and get a founding member offer to join us. So you're very welcome. If you like the podcast and you think you would like to get some extra support from me and from a community of other cool professional women doing their thing, then do go and look at that and come and join us. All right. I will see you in next week's episode. Bye.